fantastic.
I know it gets old making a comment on it every year, but
It's true. It does get hard. Let me see.
Okay.
What day you go?
just,
Monday night, because I'm doing the Blue
it
Angels
just
thing.
grates at me that we're applying to get our own money back. No other counties are putting their money in but us. Because we have an agreement that was signed back in 2016 that gave the water authority control of Charles A. Black well field. And so now we pay for every 1,000 gallons of water that comes out of it.
501.
We have nearly paid off all the development.
Got to start at 501.
We maintain it with our staff. We pay the repair costs.
I caught you.
And then all the water that comes out is paid back to the water authority.
Shocking. Positively shocking.
And there are 4 counties who are involved in the water authority. We're the only one that the authority controls over.
Actually, she argued. She goes, no, it's 5 o'clock. And I said, because it was literally 5 o'clock, not the time of the meeting. Against her? Yes. I feel like I won the lottery. Now it's 501. Are you ready? It says 501 up there. It is? Okay. I'm going to let her get her. That was kind of hilarious. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome you to the Citrus County Board of County Commissioners tentative budget hearing. Today is September 11th. It is 5:01, and I have asked Commissioner Schleybaugh if she would give this most important invocation on a day of remembrance, and then followed by the pledge. So if you are willing and able to stand, please join us and silence your devices.
Dear Lord, thank you for today, and thank you for the men and women who run into fire and run to protect us and keep us safe. Lord, be with their families today especially, and know that they're honored, and we pray that you put a hedge of protection around us and our country and protect our leaders. Thank you for the blessings of being Americans. And thank you for all that you do, and forgive us our sins. In your name, amen.
Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Commissioner Schleybaugh.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Yes, ma'am. This is a special meeting of the Citrus County Board of County Commissioners this 11th day of September 2024. And attendants are Chair Holly Davis, First Vice Chair Rebecca Bays, Second Vice Chair Diana Finnegan, Commissioners Jeff Kennard and Ruthie Schleybaugh, County Administrator Steve Howard, and Management and Budget Director Aaron Dobrin.
Thank you. Aaron is up there. You're in the different seat. Okay. Hi.
Hello.
Take it away.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. B1 is discuss the purpose of the public hearing. So hearings are primarily for the purpose of explaining the budget, proposed tax levy, and any proposed amendments, as well as affording the general public the opportunity to participate in the budget process. Moving on to B2, it is the proposed tentative millage rates. So we're going to discuss those for fiscal year 24-25. If you look up at the slide, there's certain information that we have to provide to you per Florida statute 200.065. The name of the taxing authority is Citrus County. The aggregate rolled back rate is 8.0 3286. The percentage of increase over the aggregate rollback rate is 6.58%, and the tentative aggregate millage rate is 8.8764. The next slide provides the calculation of the aggregate millage rate. The Department of Revenue provides this calculation, and it is in compliance with TRIM. If you look towards the bottom, it explains how we arrive at that. It is the total taxes levied divided by the taxable value, and that provides us the aggregate millage rate. B3 is the tentative budget for fiscal year 24-25. So we're going to discuss the proposed tentative budget. The proposed tentative budget is $475,244,863, which is a 2.79% increase from fiscal year 23-24. With a budget of $462,349,474. B is the presentation of the budget modifications, amending the 24-25 budget, incorporating adjustments from the proposed, or that were proposed at the budget workshop in July. That is Exhibit A. Other budget modifications, which is Exhibit B, and the cash carry forward projects, which is Exhibit C. And then B4 is to receive public comments regarding the fiscal year 24-25 budget.
Okay. So we will open it to the public. Would anyone like to speak on the budget? You have 3 minutes. Unless you have a letter on file with us, then let us know, and you have 5. Please watch the timer. A yellow light will go off when you have 60 seconds remaining. And please state your name for the record and fill out a green card. And Colonel, you know all of that, so I may have just done nothing, depending on if there's any newcomers coming up here.
Good afternoon. Mark Zaveska. I live in North Wagon Point in Pine Ridge, here to represent the 11,000 residents of Pine Ridge Estates. Thank you for the 5 minutes, and thank you to the commissioners for the opportunity to talk to you today. There was not an updated proposed projected budget in the agenda packet for this meeting, so our assumption is essentially the same information carries forward from the preliminary budget hearing. Was that a workshop or a budget hearing? I'm not really sure how you couch that, but our comments are based on that and then subsequent engagements with the staff that we've had since then. There are 2 issues that we'd like to bring to your attention today. The first is a carryover from yesterday, the regular meeting that we had, the $1.6 million shortfall in District 3 fiscal year 24 resurfacing. We would like a commitment from the board that if the shortfall is not fixed in 24, it will be fixed in 25. Second is another confirmation from the board's commitment to a 20-year resurfacing policy. It's probably annoying to you, but it is necessary. There's been a lot of talk about a 25-year resurfacing policy. There's even a video out from the county that has that listed in it. So I think there's some amount of discussion that needs to occur as a result of that. I'll start with a shortfall for the District 3. A quick review, more for the benefit of the audience and the staff members that were not here before, is the commitment the board made to us, the public, and to the staff, the direction to the staff for the allocation of fiscal year 24 road resurfacing dollars. Quote, each district receives a proportional amount of resurfacing dollars equivalent to the percentage of the total roads in the county. In plain English, straightforward math, District 3 has 30.2% of the roads. The fiscal year 24 resurfacing budget is $12,210,520. You multiply those two together and you get a number of about $3.7 million is what District 3 was supposed to get. It ended up getting about $2.5 million, a shortfall of about $1.16 million to be a little more precise. We'd like to thank the board members who acknowledged those numbers yesterday at yesterday's meeting and said they were bringing up with the county staff for resolution. We look forward to those discussions. Even so, it's unlikely that we're going to be able to resolve that in fiscal '24, so it's likely to fall over and spill over into fiscal '25. If that's the case, we want to ensure that District 3 is allocated $6.05 million for resurfacing in fiscal '25. That's District 23's fiscal year '25 allocation plus the $1.16 million shortfall. Sounds like a big number, particularly for roads, but that's what you have committed to investing and improving our roads. That's nothing fancy, just plain English and straightforward math. The second issue is reconfirmation of the 20-year resurfacing cycle, and it's probably annoying to you, and I think maybe to us as well. At the final budget hearing for the fiscal '24 budget last September, about a year ago, the board voted to put the road resurfacing on a 20-year cycle. 10 months later, July of this year, preliminary budget hearing, we asked the board to reconfirm its commitment to a 20-year resurfacing cycle. It did. In addition, the commissioners gave direction to the staff to include language on the 20-year resurfacing policy in the road maintenance section of the budget, in the description, the goals, the policy, somewhere in there. That was given to them. There's no update, so we can't confirm it, but we're confident it's going to end up in there. In spite of all that, we continue to hear a 25-year resurfacing policy when we're dealing with some of these issues. So we're asking once again that you reconfirm the commitment to the 20-year resurfacing policy so it is no longer an impediment for us to make progress on some of the things we're talking about. Yeah, annoying, but we think it's necessary. In closing, 2 requests. The commitment for the board that District 3 have that remedy in '25 if it's not available in '24. And second, we also request the board to reconfirm its commitment to that 20-year cycle. We hope to leave with a good news story. We're optimistic that we will. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today, and thank you for the hard work you do for Citrus County. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is John Labriola from Inverness. I do have a letter on file, so if I could get to 5 minutes, I don't think I'll need them all, but I wanted to discuss an item in the budget. It's the library budget. As you know, this year you're spending over $5 million in the budget, which is actually a 7% increase from the current year. In the proposed budget, I mean, for 2024 to 25. And as you all know, you recently removed the book Jack of Hearts from the library. Diana Finnegan was kind enough to pass out excerpts to you all. You all agreed it was a pornographic book. It shouldn't be in the teen section, and it was removed. But that's just one example of, we're getting such a huge volume of books coming into the system. If you look at the budget, there's actually a $312,000 line item specifically for books for the year. But that translates to 1,300 books per month that are coming into the system. And the library staff has said that's just it's too voluminous a mass of books that are coming in to be able to vet the material. So we're not talking about banning books. You heard a lot of people talk yesterday about banning books. This is not about banning books. It's about maintaining a better control of what comes into the system. But there's no way, they've said there's no way to vet that volume of books coming in, 1,300 a month. And the thing with there's no room to put 1,300 books into the library every month. So as they come in, they come out. So as they're coming in, they're weeding them out. We feel like that the volume is just too great at both ends. So in order to give the staff ability to vet the books, so books like Jack of Hearts doesn't get into the children's section, we're suggesting that you bring down that budget. Now, the $312,000 I mentioned for book purchases is actually up 30% from 2022 to 23 from just 2 years ago. So if the year that book was purchased was back in I think it was 2018. So we're just saying, just bring it down to a more controllable level, like what it was in 2022, which was 7% less. I think it was about $200,000 that year instead of $312,000. So we're just suggesting that you bring it down so you can give the library staff more time to vet. This is not about banning books. It's not about getting rid of any books that are in the system. It's just the ability to better vet the books that are coming in before they get on the shelves, because there's no way, and Jack of Hearts, there could be another Jack of Hearts part 2 that comes on the system. And the librarians don't even have time to read all the titles, much less review the material in the book. So we're just basically asking you if you could reduce that line item in the budget from the $312,000 down to the 30% less would be 241,295. So if you could just reduce it down back to 241,295, which is what the system was spending back in 2022, or more if you feel inclined. But please reduce it by some amount because it's just way too much. The volume is just too great to be able to vet the books that are coming in. Thank you.
Thank
Madam
you.
Chairman?
Yes.
Point of order. That book that Commissioner Finnegan brought to our attention was in the young adult section, not in the children's section.
Thank you.
Chair,
Yes.
he did not state what organization he was speaking on behalf of. He simply said there was a letter on file.
Can you, I'm sorry, Mr. Labriola, can just speak into the mic just so we have it on record. Thank you.
It should be the Christian Family Coalition. Thank you.
We're ready for you.
Hi, everybody. My name's April Winook. I've been here before. I'm from Hernando County. And I agree with what John is recommending. I was at the library meeting last time, and they were discussing the budget. And they were also discussing these books that they were looking at to make sure that they were suitable for our young children. The young adults section turns out the age, it was brought up at the meeting, is from 12 to 18 years old. And that's just way too young. Another thing I found out at this meeting is that it takes 3 people, they designate 3 people, and it takes approximately 3 weeks for them to examine that one book, which they did. And the head of that library, he explained to us it's a long and lengthy time, and they are getting paid on library time. And John's absolutely correct. There's no way you can vet these amount of books with them coming in every month and then they're seeding out the other books, and to really vet the books, especially specifically for our young children. And please consider that. I think we don't need to spend money uselessly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Mary Cedar. How are you today? I have a couple of things I would like to say, and you can say they're not pertinent to this issue, but they are intertwined. It's what the homeowner goes through, what the taxpayers go through. All of us here in this room are consumers because we consume it all. Now, the taxes you want to raise is $5 million to pay for all this. So you're going to have to come and see us to get all this money to pay for it. Kamala Harris wants to raise our property taxes too. You want to raise our property taxes too. You know what? We're getting old. We can't afford to keep paying for this. And we've had our belly full of it. And the other thing is, you cannot possibly vet all those books at one time. It's common sense. Remember Nancy Pelosi? She said, oh, don't worry about the bill. It was several thousand pages long, but they had 24 hours to read it. She said, just vote for it and then read it. You can't do that. The taxpayers have had a belly full of this, and we are upset, and I wanted to let you know it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Cedar.
Good afternoon, Mike O'Connell, Floral City. I'd like to talk a little bit about the economy. Just before the meeting, I did an internet search, and I'm just going to read some of my findings very quickly. And I have the sources. Anyone that would be interested in the sources, I can get them to them. Big Lots, yesterday, filed Chapter 11. Third quarter jobs, 20,000 below economists' expectations, going to a 3.5-year low as labor market eases. Credit card debt is up 12% over 2023. Credit card balances increased by $27 billion. Auto loan and credit card delinquency rates remain elevated. They are at their highest levels since 2012. 58% of Americans believe the U.S. is in a recession. Dollar General says, quote, customers are running out of money. As the company's shares plummet over 30%, the largest single-day drop in the company's history. Bristol-Myers Squibb laying off 2,200 workers. Ford announced last week they're laying off 3,000 workers, 2,000 in the U.S. Intel is laying off thousands of employees. GM lays off 1,000 workers. Microsoft laid off 1,900 workers. 92% of employers in the U.S. are preparing for potential layoffs this year. Now, none of us are looking forward to a recession, but if it's not already here, we're just about in a recession. So we have got to cut the spending. I think you guys will all be happy next year if you make some cuts. You know, the citizens of Citrus County are going to say, wow, those people were really forward thinking. They saw something before we did. I'd also like to agree with the previous three speakers. I understand the library is purchasing 1,300 books a month. 1,300 books a month, okay? Now, they're not really expanding the inventory, maybe slightly, maybe not, which means that they're getting rid of maybe 1,000 to 1,300 a month. And when they sell books, they sell them for pennies on the dollar. So that strikes me as an awful waste of money, especially when Americans are suffering, and it's only getting worse. We've got kind of an official a propping up of the government by the federal government that is kind of making it look like we're not in a recession, but we are. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mine's going to be short. My name is Rick Matherson from Hernando, and I agree with everything that's just been said. No need to rehash. Basically, we need to save money, protect the kids, and you can do that easily by reducing the budget for the library. Thank you for your time.
Janet Barrick, Citrus Springs. Residential roads. This is just a reminder. I'm sure that it's somewhere, but I couldn't find it. Citrus Springs MSU gives money for residential road resurfacing. They gave money last year. It was not spent. They gave money. It's in their budget for this year. Those roads have to be worst to best because that is property owners, whether you live there or don't, have to be considered. It has to be a separate pot of money from the residential roads for the taxes. And I wanted to make sure that it doesn't get lost in the melee because, yes, we do have a new way of doing the roads, and that is not part of the percentage that District 3 is supposed to be getting. So this was just a reminder about that. As for the library, one of my best friends that I taught with was the librarian for the junior high in Paterson, New Jersey. She ordered the books, and every time books came in, she read every book before it got put on the shelf. That's how she knew where it went. We have volunteers. Maybe they can read the books as they come in, and if you need 3 volunteers, you get 3 volunteers. But 1,300 books a month to purchase, that's a lot of books. And everybody keeps saying, well, you can get it on the internet. Well, if you can get it on the internet, why would we as a county be purchasing that many books if you can go to the internet and get it? Might be something to consider if you want to cut something in the budget. I'm not saying to do it. I'm saying if you want to cut something. Might be something to consider. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Hello, I'm Renee Bedford from Floral City, Florida. I'm here to talk about economic development and how our y'all's focus is mainly on economic development rather than the preservation of our natural forests. I'm not sure if that even passed or not. The 324-acre land swap over in Brooksville for 800 acres over in Levy County. I believe that was supposed to be come to a vote at 9 a.m. this morning.
We answer after everyone's done, and I
Done.
believe it's tomorrow.
Move on to the next. But I have a newspaper here from 1994, 75th anniversary of City of Inverness. It just seems like the county is more focused on bringing money, making it a bigger. This is the Nature Coast. You keep bringing in the bigger stuff. Pave Paradise, put up a parking lot. What you want to become, Tampa, guess what? No one's going to be coming here anymore because it's not the quaint little place with the curtains. I'm just saying, property taxes have gone up 125% in 4 years. I'm a direct descendant of one of the founders of this county. You push the little guy out just to water the outside branches. What about the roots? I mean, it's what this county is about. I guess I'm just opposed to all of this, the property tax raise, spending money on useless crap like 1,300 books. Maybe I'm out of line, maybe not, but I speak for me and probably most of the people here in Citrus County. And that's pretty much all I got to say.
Thank you. Is there someone behind the column? Yes.
Donna Rommel. I volunteer to be a reader if you need somebody to vet your books. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? All right, we'll close open to the public. Board, anyone like to respond?
In the last 4 years, how much have the taxes gone up?
I don't know offhand, but I can tell you there's two parts of that. There's obviously the millage as that increases, but obviously property tax values go up. So those are the two components that combine to make your property tax
Or they
bill.
go down, as with IB4.
So it can go either way, but
But the property appraiser increases that amount.
right, they increase or decrease the property value.
Okay. She had a good question where she said it's gone up 125% or something, and I was just curious. You know, I thought she said taxes, sorry.
Any other, go ahead.
Well, you have an assessed value every year by the property appraiser. And if you're homesteaded, you have a 3% save your home. So it can only be adjusted by 3% every year. If you're non-homesteaded, then it's a 10% cap. So if you own a piece of commercial property or if you own a piece of residential property that's not homesteaded, that is not saved by the 3% save your home. So your assessed value of your property could be either adjusted by the 3% or the 10%.
Assuming no improvements.
Right. If you pulled a permit, if there was improvements, that could add to the additional valuation of your property.
And our millage rate is the same as it was in 2015. So the, roughly, I looked it up. So it was 8 years of rollback, and we all know why we had rollback for 8 years, and that's why the roads are in horrible shape. I did come across a interesting data point that it costs vehicle owners an extra $452 a year on average to drive on poor roads. So paving the roads is actually going to save everyone a lot of money, which is fiscal conservatism. As far as you missed, Ms. Bedford, you weren't here at the meeting yesterday, I don't believe, but we were all asked about the Parklands transfer, and I believe all 5 of us expressed anything from dismay to flat-out outrage. I believe the words "over my dead body" escaped my lips. I grew up here. I am very much in love with the Nature Coast, and every decision I do is around trying to put the right development in the right places and to protect the environment. So it's not as bad maybe as it seems. Commissioners Kennard or Finnegan, either one of you want to chime in? Nope.
Nope. Wait till you get back to the budget talk.
All right, we'll carry on.
I'll say something.
Okay.
Some of this was off budget, but I feel like people took their time to come, so I'll say a couple of things. For Pine Ridge, I'm not sure how this is going to check out for this upcoming budget and how, you know, you've been here for the presentations that they're going to be assessing roads differently. So I don't know if that percentage is going to stick or not. We'll have to see how all this shakes out. I know your math is a little different, but remember, Public Works has a budget for different things, and under that whole roads, I mean, everything's not resurfacing. Some goes to bridges, some goes to, you know, fixing other things. Some went to full-depth reclamation, and then they had a budget for resurfacing, and then the math was correct for that part. Even if more money was thrown to that district, that doesn't mean it goes to Pine Ridge. So we'll see how all that shakes out with the budget from first meeting. You know, I'm very concerned. We traveled the roads down in Pine Ridge, and it's my understanding, unless something changed, you're saying 25. I thought we met the 20-year. Didn't we meet that with all this new money that we got for roads, that we are on a 20-year?
I have to ask staff to come forward on that. There's different you know, best practices across the nation. Some will use 20, some will use 25. Each road could be a little different. So I'm always cautious of that until I get this road assessment program in place. I think I'm gonna be cautious of what I would say it's going to be until I see those things. Other states actually have pushed it out further. I'm not saying we should do that, but I think even on our website, it's actually talks 20 to 25 years now. So
I feel like, can you really, Carlton, nail down a year? Because prices change. We're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's 22 years, maybe it's 25, maybe it's 20, maybe it's 19, I don't know.
Right. And that's really what we were shooting for, a 20 to 25-year plan. And when we were talking with management budget years past, we came up with that dollar figure where we needed to be each year for the next successive maybe 4 or 5 years. We were discussing that 20 to 25-year plan. But with the new pavement assessment system that we're going to be having coming in, it's going to be more based on a pavement condition index. In other words, where are our roads ranked? So when that system comes on board, it's going to be a 0 to 100, and it's going to be completely the opposite. The 100 will be a brand new road. A 0 will be a road that is completely destroyed. So at that point, after the assessment of the roads, we're going to get that index or that ranking of county roads. And then that's going to directly correlate to a budget number to bring that pavement condition index closer to 100, depending on where the board wants it to be based on the amount of money we want to spend.
Thank you, Carlton. And I know when we're asking for any money for roads, if you weren't expecting it, that's a whole new, you need to figure out which roads are next. So you've done a good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
The other thing I'll just address, I did speak with our Director of Community Services about some things with the library. 1,300 books a month does sound crazy, but then it was explained to me, which makes perfect sense, that when you have bestsellers, there's a number of bestsellers, and they have to buy multiple copies of that for each library. So that's a lot of the books. And then after everyone reads them, then they take the old bestsellers where they have multiple copies and then start weeding them out. And sometimes that's sold, and then new things are purchased for the library. But to say that, I do agree we can't have the wrong books going in the wrong section. So I believe they are working on a better vetting process. So, you know, no matter what the dollar amount is for their budget, I don't know that the dollar amount is the issue. I think it's the vetting process, because even if you took the money away that was suggested to slow it down, they may be able to do it the full amount. It's just they're working on that vetting process, which I think is great. And I put my glasses on for my own notes. Oh, and I believe they are going to be changing the age of the young adult section, so that's not so misleading. So I think that that library advisory board is hearing you, and what I'm hearing is working on getting things the way they should be. And you handled the land swap well, so thank you. I think that's it.
Good job on the library. Thank you.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
I'd like to ask Commissioner Finnegan one question, because I thought it was 14, but is young adult definitely 12? And by law, I have not heard that they want to change the age, which I would recommend that if it's within the power of this board, to definitely do that, because if 12 is the age that they're saying, that's too young, that's not a young adult. And I agree with what Commissioner Finnegan's saying, but if you could just enlighten me a little bit more of the process of how they do that.
Well, I wouldn't know to do that, but I'm sure if Steve Howard's okay, Madam Chair would like to ask Eric Head, maybe he could explain that a little bit better. I don't want to start putting words into your mouth, although I just kind of did that. Eric said.
Well, and the point is also well made that sometimes there's precocious readers that are younger than whatever our youngest age is. So.
Certainly. And thank you, Board. Eric Head, Community Services Director. Basically, I've been working with Adam. He's been working with the Library Advisory Board, and they've been coming up with some options as we respond to all of the book challenges and making sure books are in the appropriate place. Some other books have already been moved. I think, to answer your question, Commissioner Schleybaugh, the 12 to 18 has been around a long time. It's a generalized number. It was generalized by publishers. It was originally put in place years ago by most libraries as a reading level. It's not necessarily, and things have changed. Times change, materials change, what publishers publish changes. They like to publish what sells. So that's where that number comes from. A majority of the materials that are currently in young adult are generally around 13 or 14 and up. In discussing that with the Library Advisory Board and Adam Chang, the director, he's comfortable with, and I would certainly support that because it's fully within the parameters of just procedure and how we shelve books, and because a vast majority of young adult books are published towards high school level, 15 and up. And so, moving forward, he's going to bring that back in a response, and we'll get with county administration. And the Library Advisory Board will probably be bringing, their recommendation that is something that they find a very appropriate thing, is young adult, even though it's outside, it's not in the children's section, it's outside of that section, it's actually over towards the adult sections in all libraries, that the 15 and up would be the most appropriate for those materials. And as far as the vetting process, they're working on that. Obviously, we don't spend that kind of money on just young adult. That's a very small section in all libraries. So they're working on some additional steps so that with that genre specifically, that we add some additional review measures, especially if it's a questionable material or if it might be fall into that kind of range, that it gets extra eyes on it. And then they're working on that process as well. Is that good?
Yeah, and thank you for listening.
Yes, you absolutely.
Well done, Mr. Head. Okay, if there's no further comments, we'll get into the budget.
B5, this is to accept any motions to adjust the tentative millage and proposed budget. So if at this time the board has any
I can take a stab at that.
Okay.
So the board has agreed to keep the millage rate as it was set last year, but that still obviously means a tax increase for a lot of our citizens.
Because of market value.
Because of market value. Thank you for the clarification. Yes. So there is a list for potential millage reductions, and I think easily for tonight, we could safely take off $1.42 million because that reduces our general fund reserve from 18.43% to 17%. 17% is the max by our own policy. So I think that we should go ahead and reduce the millage by that rate. And there are some battery backups, $75,000. It's a small amount in the scheme of things, but every bit of the millage helps. So I think those two items, we should tonight reduce the millage and take those out of the budget.
Madam Chairman?
Commissioner Schleibaugh?
I think we could also add the judicial renovation because we already have 2 million there, and I don't think we've started on any of that, and we could, I mean, it's .0632, but every little bit helps.
And, let's see.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I've got I don't have an issue. In fact, I agree with reducing the reserve from 18.3% down to 17%. My question on the battery backup, is that something that I'd like to know from Mr. Howard, is that something that's never required? And if it's never required, how did it make it to the budget? I mean, was this just fact that was thrown in, or are we kicking the can down the road and we're gonna have to increase the millage rate next year to include the battery backup? I would be very reluctant to cut the second floor renovation. It seems like ever since I've been sitting up here, we've been talking about renovating that second floor. Just because it doesn't seem to be going anywhere yet, I don't think that we need to be cutting that money, that funding that's there to make it happen. We need to push harder to make sure that it happens. It's got to get done. I don't know what the brakes are on it, but it's got to happen. So that would be my take on those three things.
Commissioner Bays, do you have anything?
We're gonna hear about the battery backup.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I think we did get an email. Todd's no longer with us, but at the further review, they could push these out to the following year, is what they indicated. They'd be able to, that's what Aaron had indicated back with staff, looking at any other opportunities. They felt like they could wait one more year, that's what we're being told.
So we're kicking the can. We do need them, or we don't need them.
My understanding, they don't need them this year. That's what Aaron, we can look up this email real quick.
Those were purchased in this fiscal year, and they didn't come in, and so they
The life
accidentally put them
expectancy's
in
more
again,
license.
not sure if they were going to get them or not. So it could have been, it can be eliminated.
It seems to be as clear as mud, so I think we should take them out.
Aaron, let's go to the reserves. So our maximum by ordinance is 17%, but we have 18.43% in there. It was my understanding that we had set aside some monies potentially for the sheriff in that reserve, and it's reflective in that amount.
So that was one of the options for the additional reserve. And I know that was something that had been discussed. It could also be used for, another project to speed up a project, to put more additional funding somewhere, but it wasn't allocated specifically, and so it goes to the reserve.
And then we just had a bond rating increase. If you reduce this amount down, will that affect our bond rating?
So the two things they mentioned to us was, and if you look at it, one of the factors was that our reserves were above 15%. And one of the questions they asked us was how much did we have in reserve in fiscal year 24, the dollar amount, and how much would be in there next year. So they also considered the fact that that dollar amount was increasing.
And Mr. Howard, reserves equate essentially to about 60 days of operating. Is that correct?
I have to look to Aaron. I think that's I'm not sure where our number is now, but that's how I look at it, how many days I have to operate this government. I don't like to look at percentages because that's not going to pay the bills overall when I'm looking, so.
Is that, would that be fairly accurate?
Yeah, so 17% gets you about 62, 63 days. And just so you know, that is normal operation. So if something were to happen, like we had to pay for storm cleanup or we had an unfortunate event, we would have to pay for that and then continue operation. So that's just 62 or 63 days of normal operation.
So in the event that we would have, let's just say we got hit by either a tornado or a hurricane and we have an emergency operation that we have to go in, we have to front the money. How long does it take for the government then to reimburse those dollars?
Honestly, it depends. It also depends on the declaration. So a lot of times, like and this is just, normal, the first 30 days of like cleanup, they'll cover at 100%. And then after that, we're still responsible for 25% of those repairs. So, and it kind of depends. We've seen different things happen with different storms. We've got some money relatively fast, and then there's some money we're here years later waiting for.
So if we had a catastrophic event, whether it be a tornado, it be a hurricane, and let's just say particularly it wipes out a lion's share of the west side of the county, and it destroys property, so now it's going to reset your property values to vacant land more or less. Plus you're going to have cleanup.
Right. We need to, we also do protective measures prior to the storm. So just like this previous storm, those things that we did, and I don't think it really totaled much. Previous storms, I think we've paid more. If we don't then qualify, if we don't meet that threshold, we are then just paying for it as a county. So then if we don't meet the threshold when something happens, that's coming out of the reserve.
More specific to the point, though, is if we had a true catastrophic event, wiped out.
Mexico Beach.
Exactly. What happens to your ad valorem collections at that point and your dollars going, because you're looking futuristically into your county and how you're going to survive that?
I mean, ultimately, obviously, I can't say, it would be devastating. Bless you.
Bless you.
Bless you.
I imagine, the state would provide some help, but, obviously it would be devastating.
So essentially, though, if it knocks out your housing, you're going to take that value off, and this is going to reset your taxable value back to more or less a vacant lot.
Yeah, I mean, yes, the property value would decrease.
We had he's in the back of the room. He came up and talked earlier about an economic downturn, a recession. I sat on this board during what was considered to be the Great Recession, and we had a perfect storm. And we spent down reserves. And I know I've told this story, and you all are probably tired of hearing it on this board, but please listen to me carefully. In 2008, when the market fell apart, and then 2012, when Duke took over Progress Energy, and they took 600 of the highest income wage earners that work for Duke Energy and moved them to North Carolina, and their spouses were either higher or next in line as the wage earners. We were in a tailspin. Not only did we have a massive recession, but we also had massive foreclosures. That reset the bar on what those houses were worth and what our taxable values became at that point. Our ad valorem collections today, and just this year, reset to 2008. It's taken us that long to climb out of that recession. And because we've had to climb out of that recession, and the dollars that we've collected along the way, you all see how much deficit we have in this county as far as road resurfacing and infrastructure, all the things that makes a good community. We have to pay for those. And now it's caught up with us because of inflation. I mean, yesterday when we looked at 1.9 miles of road repaving because it needs full depth reformation and it's going to cost us $3 million because we didn't plan for it and we didn't collect the money to keep up with it. We're in a pickle. I mean, I want to be Mrs. Claus. I want to give you everything you want. I don't want to tax you. But I also know that we have an obligation. That's called leadership. There's certain fundamental things that we need to do to stay ahead of this curve. And I don't know how to give you both. It's not possible to give you both. It's one of the hardest things, and I know that everybody up here and all of our staff lay in bed at night and wonder, my gosh, how can we balance this? What is the tightrope to walk here? You have a sheriff that comes, and we know that public safety is important, but you can't give him 70 cents of every dollar that's collected and then still have to meet your mandates, meet all of the budgets of all the other constitutional officers, and then satisfy the citizens on the same time. I mean, look at fire and EMS. We all want a fire truck to show up. We all want EMS. We want an ambulance at our door when we need it. No?
No, ma'am, sorry.
I just want this board to go very cautiously down this lane if this is where they're going. And I'm just putting it out there for full disclosure. We can't even apply for grants because we don't have the grant matches. We leave dollars on the table all the time because it either takes a 25% match, it takes a 50% match. We want sidewalks, we want bike paths, we need road capacity, we want to preserve environmental lands and turn them into parks, and we want to maintain them all. But we better be very careful what we decide to do and how we decide to do it. And I'm going to stop my rant, but please, when we took in 2008, by 2013, 14, we had spent our reserves down to $8 million. $8 million. And we're finally just back up to where we're required to be. It's been a long road, and it's been a hard road, but we're getting there. And I don't know what the answer is, but I do want you to make your decisions very carefully and understand the impacts of what they are and how they can affect you, not just today, because our job is not just today. Our job is to leave a legacy. Our job is to look out 25 years from now, and did we leave this better than we found it?
Madam Chair?
I was just going to say, good rant. Commissioner Kennard.
Commissioner Bays made some great points. I was waiting for her to make a motion.
She also took the question out of my mouth, and we haven't heard it yet, on the bond rating, but you said it's 15% or higher is what they judge on, so we don't get any brownie points for being 18.5?
I don't know if you just read what their considerations were in the backup, it just says one of the items was it was above 15%. I don't know if you got to 20 that it may generate more points. That's just what they have in there. And then I can tell you one of the questions they asked us was what our dollar amount was this year and what our dollar amount in the proposed budget for next year was for reserves.
It's essentially, if anyone doesn't understand that, it's essentially the interest rate that the government, we can borrow at when we have to bond road and bridge projects and things like that. Better rates save us money. So
we need, I still have the floor. We're ready for a motion.
There was another comment I wanted to make. May I?
Yeah, sure.
Where are we with the sheriff's budget in terms of 10 deputies? We do have 10 deputies in there.
We do.
Do we have the 3.5% or whatever that everyone else got? No.
No.
For cost for
No.
inflation?
Yeah,
No.
the consensus at the time was just the 10 officers, so that
Okay.
is currently what's in the budget.
And we do have, I want to say it was $1 million for grant match.
We do, yes.
Okay. My two priorities are grant matches, to make sure that we're getting all the money that we can for infrastructure, and road resurfacing. So those two things are absolutely top of my priority list. And I'm going to give the floor back to Commissioner Bays if she wanted to make a motion, or
Oh,
Commissioner
no,
Schleybaugh.
Can I just add
Yeah,
one
absolutely.
thing for whoever makes a motion? Can we please address District 3 roads and make a commitment to keeping at the 25-year cycle?
20 is what they asked for.
Okay, even better, 20-year cycle, and that the proportional amount goes to District 3, just as it will District 1 and so on. Thank you. If I could just get a commitment of that we will we will stay at the 20-year cycle. Thank you.
I would say that it's a little difficult to say 20 or 25 years because it's a moving target from year to year with inflation, and God only knows what else we end up getting hit with. My druthers would be 20 or even less, simply because the problem with being at a 20-year cycle means we're only now still repaving every road every 20 years. And when you have half of your roads in horrible condition, that means a very long, painful going at it year after year after year. So faster than 20 would be great if we could afford it, but we can't. Mr. Howard, do you want to address any of that?
No, I'll do anything you want, as long as I got money. That's the F-bomb. So that's going to dictate if it's 20, 25, or 15, or whatever it is. It all costs money to do all that stuff, so I won't have that until I have the data, to share that with you. Obviously, everything's going up, as we've seen yesterday. So there's a lot of...
Did we get clarity on what the Colonel was talking about on 1.16 million?
I don't.
less?
We have a conversation hopefully tomorrow. We were trying to get together today, but I'm not. I need further...
But if there is some money being taken off the top for bridges and, big collector roads and things like that, then that would be a separate bucket than residential road resurfacing.
We could look at all those issues, correct.
We want to pave Pine Ridge.
Absolutely.
So, as well as Citrus Springs and everywhere else in the county. So, who wants to make a motion? Someone?
I'll chime in on the question about the sheriff's office. We ended that discussion with last year's budget, and then the 10 new positions, if my memory serves me correctly, were $1.9 million. We're taking $600,000 of that from impact fees, and then we were budgeting $1.3 million of an increase. What we did not do was increase the sheriff's office general budget for increases in FRS, workers' comp, insurance, vendors, stuff like that. So when we give them, when we increase the sheriff's budget by this $1.3 million, my guess is that that money will be used for those increases rather than adding new deputies.
That was my worry.
Now, certainly, if the budget is as tight as what we've been told, and we don't know if it is or not, but if the budget is as tight as we've been told, you can't necessarily stop. You've got to pay the increases of FRS. You got to pay the increases in insurance and workers' comp. Now, maybe there are certain areas, certain vendors where they can cut back orders to make up the difference. But when we budget this increase of $1.3 million increase, my suspicion is the majority, if not all of that, will be eaten up by increases in the general budget, and there will be no new deputies added. If this board wants new deputies added, then I believe what needs to happen, and I'm just saying that I believe this is the case, is that the sheriff's office general budget needs to be increased to reflect that same percentage that the other constitutionals was increased. And if we want to add additional deputies on top of that, that 1.3 additional funding and the 600,000 from impact fees needs to be on top of that percentage. Now, it may be too late in the game for this at this point. I completely understand that. But I just want the board to clearly understand that if it's only 1.3 that we're sending over there, then that's going to get eaten up in overall expenses increases in running the sheriff's office.
Which is why I brought it up. Thank you for the excellent explanation. Yes.
Glad you brought that up. My concern with the sheriff's budget, as we all received an email from the sheriff-elect about a transition, and it's my understanding that the incumbent has not reached out to the sheriff-elect, and he's in the audience here, to do a transition. And that it's business as usual at the sheriff's office. And I'm concerned at some of what I'm hearing as the chatter in the community. And it would be my recommendation that we hold a flat line on the sheriff's budget, but put the money aside until the sheriff-elect takes office and he's able to make those determinations on how he sees fit to run the operation for the next 4 years. I say that because, number one, since 2019, the sheriff has received almost a 41% increase in his budget. On top of that, this year, we gave him $2.5 million over and above what he asked for. I mean, if a deputy cost you $100,000 year one, he could have hired a minimum of 21, 22 deputies. I don't know what he's done with that money, and as the legislature has preempted, once you give it to them, they can do whatever they want. They don't have to answer to it. So if that's the case, I certainly don't want to set our sheriff-elect up for failure. I think that we flatline that budget until the new sheriff takes office on January 7th, and then he can dig into his budget and advise us of what's going to be needed.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So your proposal would be to hold the sheriff's budget at exactly what it was for 23-24. And the 1.9 million that we had budgeted, which is 1.3 plus the 600,000 from impact fees, that 1.3 million, hold that money back as well. So move that, just hold that in reserves until the sheriff-elect takes office? I just wanted to make sure that we were clear that it wasn't last year's budget plus the 1.3, but a straight last year's budget, and we're holding back that 1.3 and naturally holding back the impact fees.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Aaron, what does the 3.5% calculate to?
I would have to look at that, but I believe 5% was around $2 million. Hold on one second.
So it's basically, if we leave the reserve at 18.43 plus add in the 1.3, then that reserve gets fatter, but we could release it to the sheriff after he takes office. Once he digs into the budget, and
it looks like it would be somewhere around approximately 1.4 would be the 3.5%.
How much?
Approximately 1.4.
Which is exactly what the reduction would be in the millage to 17%. Commissioner Schleybaugh.
Okay, we're all taxpayers up here, and I wasn't going to bring this up for this meeting because, as you well know, there can be a big spin before the next budget hearing with the sheriff, and I didn't, I wanted to dig in a little bit more, but since you brought up it's business as usual, and I'm hearing that even though a new sheriff has been elected, the taxpayers are still paying money to have, to this day, tomorrow even, Sheriff Mike Pendergrass put on every vehicle, and the cost of that, which is not cheap. We gave them 10 new deputies last budget cycle that I understand have not been filled also. Why don't you, if we're worried as a board, and I am, that money is just being spent and promotions being given to, which will definitely hurt the taxpayers, then we've promised 10 or 1.3 million, right? Why not take that, also that 10 that hasn't been fulfilled, and put that in reserves for the January? Otherwise, I mean, no, I'm talking about the 10, whatever 10 works out to, that we gave them last year for the 39 million. I'm just throwing it out there. If
You're saying reduce the budget that amount because that money's already gone.
Right, but the positions weren't fulfilled.
Right. Oh, so they're calculated into his salary cost, total salary cost, yeah.
If we have an uncooperative incumbent not helping the newly elected sheriff, and money is just being spent recklessly, I mean, it's just a thought.
Commissioner Kennard.
Yeah, I understand your position, and on the surface, it makes sense. The problem is what we've been told in the past by the sheriff and his budget folks is that those unfilled positions doesn't negate the fact that the time of those positions still has to be filled. And so it gets filled by existing staff on overtime. So while the salary of those 10 empty positions is sitting there, that budget or that fund gets used up in overtime by trying to fill those shifts with existing staff. And you know, I get it. There's frustration that that a transition process has not begun yet. I'd also heard about the I guess the wrapping of the vehicles or painting on the vehicles, all that kind of stuff. But keeping just strictly to budget numbers, I had heard that money gets used up in overtime so that those shifts can still be filled.
Madam Chairman, can I rebut that?
Yes.
Yes, we have been told about overtime, but I have since been told there has been a freeze on overtime for a long time, and there is not being overtime given out. So we have been told that.
Yeah.
But I have been told, no, there's no overtime.
Commissioner Finnegan.
I was trying to remember, and you know, things change after all these months, but I thought out of the last time we doubled down and really asked out of those 10, I thought there were 6 that had been hired. So I don't know if we took all that away. I just don't want in the next couple of months protection pulled off the streets because of something we've done. If things are not happening as it should or good for the taxpayers, I don't want it to be because of us, any decision we made. So I don't know. There's obviously nobody here to ask. I wish we could ask somebody, hey, how many do you have?
I think the conservative, careful route is to stick with last year's budget and put the 10 deputies and 3.5 in reserves, which will bump it up even a little bit more than 18.43. But it should bring us down, net out to about 17 when we're done. And in the meantime, We are anticipating a highly transparent budget after the new sheriff digs into it. Yes, nod, yes. Thank you. And for the record, Colonel Vitt tried to call me this morning, but I was in the middle of chairing another board meeting, and so I tried to call her back this afternoon, and she didn't pick up, so. She may have been trying to talk about this, I assume. Anyone else? Motion?
Well, if you're looking for a motion on the tentative millage rate, where are we at here? B5, I would make a motion that we take the proposed tentative millage rate of 8.9302 and take out the battery backups, which amounted to a millage rate of 0.0053, which would give us a proposed tentative millage rate of 8.9249.
Okay. Is that enough detail for the motion? Yes?
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Kennard, second by Commissioner Schleybaugh. Is there any further board discussion? Commissioner Finnegan?
The millage is still relatively high to where it was, and I think taxpayers, when they heard we're not increasing the millage, but obviously the property taxes are going up anyway because of property values, it's not what they're expecting. So I know this is tentative. This isn't our set millage rate. If we all, and that means all, especially I guess you, Aaron, if we could keep looking, you know, that was good. That was something that we could come up with, but maybe we all can look at some of the projects and just to see by the time we come back at the end of the month, maybe we can slice a little more off.
Can I just mention something real quickly?
Yes.
If this is what's going to be reduced at this hearing, we will have to recess and recalculate all of that. So we don't know if you want to do that now or if you just want to give us guidance and have us bring it back on the 24th recalculated. So if you approve the motion, we'll have to recess and go recalculate everything.
Okay. Then I would say probably guidance would be better. And then, so the other thing to go back to the second floor judicial renovation, Mr. Howard and I had a conversation about that. Or were you saying you don't believe it'll be 2.9 million?
That wasn't me. I didn't say that. So it wasn't me.
I think that was you.
So I'm not, yeah, I think that was another commissioner.
I was a little sideways about it when I heard the
I'm
price
not
tag.
sure where that'll be at. Obviously, we're working on that now. Part of the problems are we got to move other people out of here. We got people that want to move, but they want us to pay their
Or you
rent.
said that the estimate was very just sort of a bucket. Someone told me that.
Yeah, it may have been
Thought it was
facilities.
you.
May have been facilities. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll verify.
So that's a place where we could tighten it, obviously, if we could before then.
There's a lot of cost, you know, a lot of cost with that when you do courtrooms and things like that. Technology enhancements and things like that you don't think about until you get into it.
Right. Okay.
Madam Chairman? Oh, go ahead.
Commissioner Kennard?
My concern with that is, again, I don't know if it's been all 8 years, but it sure seems like it's been 6 years. We've been talking about that second floor, and now we're gonna tighten up this number in 2 weeks. I don't see how that happens, or honestly, and I know we're not gonna flesh it out tonight, but I don't know why the brakes are on this project. If somebody's holding it up, if it's not gonna happen, let's get it out of the budget and just say, we're not gonna do this. Or if we're going to do it, let's get the people out of there that need to get out of there and get on with it.
I completely agree with the need for speed, Commissioner Kennard.
Madam Chairman?
Commissioner Schleybaugh was next, I thought. No.
Yeah, I just want to say, if, it sounds like all of us want the millage lowered. So if we give the direction of what we want, which we have by consensus, basically, should we modify the motion to keep the millage what it is, but direct staff to come back with the cuts so that you don't have to do on the, backroom recalculations.
Yes.
Because it sounds like all,
Yeah, so
Yes, I'll modify my motion to that.
to rescind it, actually, we're just doing.
I'm gonna rescind my second.
All right, I will rescind my motion.
And actually, the very next item is to accept the tentative millage rate. So if for B5, you want to provide guidance, the very next item, you're going to be approving the tentative millage rate by motion.
So if we're, may I, Madam Chair? If we're still providing guidance, and I think I know why this courtroom project is backed up. I feel like, are we waiting for, is it the chessboard and we're waiting for the pieces to move? Are we waiting for water resources to get out? And then are we waiting for the accumulation of our needs survey? Are we waiting for some of these things to come to fruition so that we know where to start putting people?
Yeah, I think this is, that you all are easy actually to get rid of, to be honest with you. I can get you out of here pretty quick.
Yeah.
It's just others that the challenging part is, because you gotta find them space. So if we wanna do one courtroom, which that's what I'm kind of focused on right now, we're looking at those plans to do that. The rest is gonna be a little more challenging because you gotta find them space in Inverness, which there is no space. So it makes it a little more challenging. If I can move people other places, it'd be a lot easier, but it's a little more difficult than that. But we are focused on that. I don't know if we can come forward and talk about that, just kind of where we're at, but we are moving forward.
And
working
not
with
to
judges.
interrupt before Carlton, but my thought is, I feel like this is very important, and we need to get this project going. But if realistically, there is a wait for maybe a good reason to see where we're putting people, and all that takes time, then if we're waiting to do that, and then waiting to go out to bid, and then waiting for those bids to get back, and then waiting to, all of this waiting, where does that put us in this next fiscal budget? And if that pushes us to the end of that, I would want this millage reduced. And if it pushes us into beyond, if it pushes us into next October, then we need to wipe it off of here because it's really for next year. But I don't, where are you expecting us to land, Carlton?
Well, we've got to remember, the project started with Randy Oliver. So Randy's idea was, let's take the Coca-Cola building, vacate, of course, the supervisor of elections, utilize that with the judges, and had some meetings and some designs done for a courtroom there with 2 judges. And then, of course, we started looking at the best use for our space, keeping the judges in this building for security reasons, taking over that second floor, allowing them to have 2 courtrooms on that second floor would be the ideal thing to do. Of course, to do that, we have public defender, we have portions of the state attorney that would have to be relocated. We're also trying to generalize all of the server closets in the courtroom into one server room, so that way we can optimize air conditioning for that area as well as fire suppression. So it's a large project with a big price tag, but it's really up to Steve. If we go ahead and spend the money right now and get one courtroom for 2 judges to share, as they were gonna do in the in the Coke building, then that would be ideal to get it done as soon as possible. Still, it may take upwards of a year to get that completed.
And that's with us leaving, but not the public defender?
Correct.
Okay. But then, once the public defender leaves, we could execute the rest without a lot of waste?
Correct. And we're trying to work on the design and the ideas of putting one courtroom in now that wouldn't have to change once we expanded that to 2 courtrooms.
That would let us expedite this process.
So more specifically to this meeting, when do we need money?
Now.
So you need the $2.9 million now? Okay, that's what I needed to know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bays, you've been very patient.
I just want to say kudos to the staff. I think, what we've done this past year is real business. I think, we've, I call it throwing a lot of mud against the wall, and then you kind of try to figure out what sticks and you go from there. And I think we're taking a very pragmatic business approach to how we look at facilities and where we go with them. And that's kind of looking at this whole space needs study. There's, you know, there's a lot of people in this room that run businesses. And when you think about the age of, and you look at all the government buildings, it's not just those buildings sitting there. You're running staff around to maintenance those buildings and mow the grass, and they don't have the same, you know, efficiencies. And you're taking up a lot of tax roll when you could combine facilities and put them under one roof and put, in the perfect world, if I had my way, we'd be looking at the Stovall building, we'd be looking at the sheriff's office, and we would be looking at the auxiliary building up by Publix. And we'd try to figure out how we're gonna combine all those people in one location, have one building to take care of with all the efficiencies, and put all that stuff back on the tax rolls. That would be smart business. Can't get there today, but that should be our goal. We know that we kind of need, we're in Lecanto, and we've got an east or west side complex, and we need, and this is our county seat, so we're not gonna leave here. But we need to do business, and we need to look at the long term. I can't say it enough. It's not about today. It's about 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 25 years from now. And we can't just sit here and look at, well, this is what we need today. This county is going to grow. We're going to have more residents. It was plotted probably before we were all born. And unless somebody's got a whole deep pocket full of money and they're going to buy up every vacant parcel in this county and preserve it, hallelujah. But I don't see anybody coming out with a checkbook to buy all the property and preserve it and take it off for development. So it is going to happen. How we get there, that's a whole nother story. And we can guide some of that, but keep your eye on the prize. Don't look just to today, and inflation will eat us alive. It's already caught up with this, if we'd have done these courtrooms 8 years ago, it'd have been half the price tag it's going to cost us now. So the longer we push this stuff out, the more it's going to cost. That's just a fact. And there's no better time than right now to get it done.
So do I hear a motion from you?
No, we're looking for a consensus at this point, so direction, because we're not going to go in the back, they're not going to go in the back conference room and do the calculation.
So are we just,
Well, the motion was taken off the floor and the second was taken off the floor.
Correct, so we're looking for a consensus for, instead of a vote, we're looking for a consensus at D5, which is, we've all been given a list of potential millage reduction items that may or would either cause minimal harm or no harm, and we're just looking at that, so.
do we know what other windows in the sheriff's office needs to be replaced? I've looked over there, it seems like they've all been replaced.
We have battery backup coming off so far. Do we know this? Oh, yay.
With the set we're replacing currently, we're about at half the windows.
So that's kicking the can down the road because it's reducing funding from 2 years to 1 year, so it would be double that next year. That's assuming that inflation doesn't cause that to go up again.
I think we can count on those windows being more expensive 2 years from now than they are today.
Yes, sir.
So it sounds to me like the consensus you have is to take the battery backups off and keep the millage rate the same for this evening.
I agree.
I agree.
I agree.
I agree for tonight, but there's a few things maybe we can work on later that I can talk to you about. We got a little time.
Okay, so moving on to B6, set the tentative millage rates for fiscal year 24-25. This is actually going to be two parts. So we're going to request a motion, and then there's certain information I have to read before the vote.
Chair. On B5, I don't recall ever hearing Ms. Darwin actually reading the rates into the record like we normally do. Do we need to do that?
I believe that's what she's about to do with B6.
She's on B6, but
Yes.
it's usually done on B5.
Last year, I don't know why, it should be under B6.
Okay.
Those are the tentative millage rates.
Thank you, just wanted to make sure.
So request board adopt and authorize the chairman to execute a resolution adopting the Board of County Commissioners tentative millage rates for the countywide millage, library services, fire taxing district, fire rescue EMS MSTU, and stormwater MSTU for 2024-2025.
And you're going to read the millage out?
So if we can get a motion, and then following the motion, I have the information to read.
Oh, okay. Looking for a motion then.
Motion to approve. I don't know if I'm supposed to say more. Okay.
Motion by Commissioner Bays. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Kennard. All right.
Okay, so the following is the millage and rollback rates, which must be publicly read into the minutes. So for countywide, we have the general fund millage of 6.9951, transportation millage of 0.9860, and health department millage of 0.0564, for a countywide total millage of 8.0375. For special districts, we have library services millage at 0.3147, fire rescue taxing millage at 0.0000, fire rescue MSTU millage at 0.5780, and stormwater MSTU millage at 0.0000. Special districts total is 0.8927 with a total millage rate of 8.9302. The proposed tentative millage rate is the 8.9302, and the proposed tentative aggregate millage rate is 8.8764 mils, which is a 6.58% increase over the aggregate rolled back rate of 8.3286 mils.
Thank you. Is there any further board discussion? Seeing none, all the.
Wait.
Oh, 8.32.
Yes, 8.3286 mils.
But our, somewhere in here. The proposed tentative budget is only a 2.79% increase from last year, and we had a 2.9% increase in the CPI.
Right.
So we're actually a little under inflation on the total dollars, just to be clear. Is there any further board discussion? I'm going to be slow to make sure everybody's good. All right, all those in, yeah?
Is there something else you're seeing?
No, I think I got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
And then B7 is to set the tentative budget for fiscal year 24-25. So request the board adopt and authorize the chairman to execute the resolution adopting the 2024-2025 tentative budget for the countywide budget, library services, fire taxing district, fire rescue EMS MSTU, and the stormwater MSTU.
Okay. So that we need a separate motion for that? Yes? Motion, please.
Motion to approve B7.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Bays, second by Commissioner Kennard. Is there any board discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
And then B8 is to announce the date, time, and location for the final budget hearing. The date will be September 24th, 2024. The time will be 5:01 p.m. And the location is the County Commission Meeting Room, 110 North Apopka Avenue, Inverness, Florida.
Thank you. And we are adjourned.